Africa. Today on February 6, 1993, the world marks the passing of a great tennis player and humanitarian in the United States of America. Arthur Ashe died at age 49 in a New York hospital as a result of AIDS-related pneumonia. Though he struggles with AIDS, he put all games into their rightful place. He showed how, at career's ends, not to be pathetic.
Not only was he a world-famous tennis player, he overcame great odds being a victim of apartheid. His memoir, Days of Grace, explains how AIDS has become one of the most important functions of his life. President Clinton called him a true American hero and a great example to all of us. Now a special report on the life of Arthur Ashe. Over to you, Melster.
Thank you, Melanie and Rebecca. From what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life, were the words of Arthur Ashe. He was illustrated by his pride, courtesy, articulacy, and his firm poise under pressure. He was, unlike many, a world-class athlete who had used his fame as a stepping stone to become a world-class activist for human rights. Now we remember the life and accomplishments of Arthur Ashe.
Arthur Ashe was born in Richmond, Virginia on July 10, 1943. At the age of 20, he became the first African-American player named to the U.S. Davis Cup team. In 1965, Arthur Ashe won the NCAA Men's Singles Championship, leading UCLA to the team title. In 1966, Arthur Ashe graduated successfully from UCLA. By 1969, most people considered Arthur Ashe to be the best male tennis player. That same year, Arthur Ashe was denied a visa by the South African government, meaning he was kept out of the South African Open. He used this to publicize South Africa's apartheid policies, which even further angered South African government. He remains the only African-American tennis player ever to win the men's singles at Wimbledon and the U.S. Open, and one of the only two black men of black ancestry to win a Grand Slam singles event. In 1980, Arthur Ashe retired. By 1988, Ashe discovered that he had contracted HIV during the blood transfusions he had received during one of his 2 heart surgeries. During his battle with AIDS, one of his fans asked, "Why does God have to select you for such a bad disease?" He replies to this fan, 500,000 people learn professional tennis, 50,000 come to the circuit, 5,000 reach the Grand Slam, 50 reach Wimbledon, 4 to the semifinals, 2 to the finals. When I was holding a cup, I never asked God, why me? And today in pain, I should not be asking God the same question.
Back to you, Melanie and Rebecca.
Though he was fortunate enough to create his life in America, many other aspiring blacks in South Africa had to face the impacts of apartheid.
With a historical perspective on apartheid and the role of Arthur Ashe in its demise, we got to our special correspondent for historical affairs, Becca Boo.
Thank you, Melanie and Rebecca. Here we are back in 1976 at a protest demonstration. May we get a comment, sir? A Mandela, did you say? Power?
Racial tensions reach a peak with the deaths of 24 unarmed students in the town of Soweto at the hands of the South African police. This latest violence was brought about by the insistence of the South African government that all black children learn to speak Afrikaans in school. This sad incident marked just another example of the exploitation of the black population by the white majority, a policy known as apartheid. So just what is apartheid? Apartheid is a rigid policy of segregation in South Africa carried out by the ruling minority, the whites. Apartheid consisted of various laws that terrorized, restricted, and totally controlled the lives of black Africans. In white-ruled South Africa, blacks had been deprived of basic human rights and political say. A black's life was separated, exploited, and lacked freedom and dignity. They could not vote, own property, sit in theaters or restaurants with white people, or even use the same bathrooms. Under apartheid, racist beliefs were enshrined in law and any criticism of the law was suppressed. Apartheid was racism made into law. Blacks held strikes and rioted over such discriminatory practices. In June of 1990, then President F.W. de Klerk's government repealed the last of the apartheid laws. Nelson Mandela, who had dedicated his life to democracy, equality, and learning for all South Africans, was released from prison after serving almost 30 years for those beliefs. He was elected president of the African National Congress the following year, and in 1993 received the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of all South Africans who suffered and sacrificed so much to bring peace to their country. Shortly after, Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president of South Africa in the first truly democratic election that South Africa ever had. Ashe's childhood memories of the segregated Virginia supported his efforts in fighting against apartheid. When South Africa denied his visa for the South African Open, Ashe gained public support. In 1970, he took his fight to the World Tennis Union and the United Nations. As a result, on March 23, 1970, South Africa was excluded from the Davis Cup competition. South Africa, under pressure, allowed Arthur Ashe, the first black professional tennis player ever, to play in its national championship in 1973. An unbelievable request by Ashe was permitted, to have integrated seats at Johannesburg's Ellis Park, with both whites and blacks sitting together. When he won the doubles title with Tom Oker, there were tears in the eyes of the black fans, who nicknamed him Sifo, or a gift from God, in Zulu. Later, after Arthur Ashe had become the first African-American man to win tennis's most hallowed trophy, Wimbledon, in 1975, he and the actor Harry Belafonte organized Artists and Athletes Against Apartheid, a group whose power helped create the economic sanctions that eventually brought an end to apartheid. In 1985, he and 46 others were arrested in anti-apartheid protests at the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C. After his retirement from tennis, Ashe joined the struggle for human rights in the U.S. and emerged as a leading critic of apartheid in South Africa. Although he died at a very early age of 49, Arthur Ashe lived to see his dream realized, a democratic South Africa free of apartheid.
Back to you, Melanie and Rebecca.
And that's the news.
From all of us,
To all of you,
good night, South Africa.